Namaste everybody and welcome to another class on Yoga Vidya. Today I'm going to start with verses 22 to 24, and these are very interesting verses. Um, I'm going to do it in two parts because I don't know how long it will take. And the reason I'm going to do it in this way is because my logic is that nobody has the uh, patent on wisdom. And so my interpretation is what I'm going to tell y'all, and then I'll throw it open for y'all to interpret and tell me whether you have any other nuances in the interpretation. So verse 22 is very straightforward. There is no there is no mandatory action in the three worlds, not anything unattained by me. Yet I am constantly acting. Now, okay, I'll read the rest also. Surely, if I did not engage in action, ever unwearied, humanity would follow my example. These worlds would be ruined if I did not perform action. Mixing of people would result in their destruction. Now, here he's talking about. First, he's saying that everything there is no action, no karma that has not been attained by me, which makes sense because he is Adi Yajna, that he explains later on. But the question is, what is this karma that he is talking about that he has not attained? Now, an attainment is an achievement. That is something that he has got, he's acquired. So, is it something that you get from an imagination, a sankalpa, an expectation, or is it a response to a stimulus? So here in my view, the way Sri Krishna looks at himself is as the primordial sacrifice that results in karma, which is why he is in every karma, which is why it makes sense when he says there he has attained all karma. And he's saying he's continuously acting. This is where the problems comes, because having him as Adi Yajna is fine, because it is a he is in every action. However, when he says that I am still continuously acting, to me it seems that he is saying that I am the stimulus of all action, whereas others may have another interpretation. Second thing he says is, surely if I did not engage in action, humanity would follow my example. This is a very interesting thing. He is talking about how individuals or anybody looks up to somebody else for emulation. That is, when there is a role model, we always look at the role model and try to emulate that role model. And he seems to be saying that I am the role model for everybody to follow. But if that is the case, then the previous stanza becomes a problem. Because here, as the manifestation of sacrifice, as the sacrifice of all that creates all karma, he is embedded in the action. However, as the karma itself, he becomes a manifestation of that action. So there is a bit of a confusion in this, because if he is going to, if we now say that he is acting continuously, and if we take the stanza, the previous stanza 22, where he says that I am continuously acting. If we take that particular stanza literally, then it means that he is continuously acting, so he becomes a role model. Now, if he is continuously acting and he is a role model, then what is he a role model of, and what is this action of Śrī Kṛṣṇa? If Śrī Kṛṣṇa's action is that of the human being in Kurukshetra, in Mahabharata, then that's a normal human being. But if Śrī Kṛṣṇa is the yogi, then that has a totally different meaning. Now this is where the dichotomy of Srimad Bhagavad Gita it becomes evident, because you're all the time confusing confused as to who is Śrī Kṛṣṇa or what is Śrī Kṛṣṇa. Is Śrī Kṛṣṇa the yogi, or Śrī Kṛṣṇa the individual, or Śrī Kṛṣṇa the concept? And all of these, he moves between these very, very fast, and he creates a kind of, he is very confusing and very difficult to contemplate on. These worlds would be ruined if I did not perfect action, if I did not perform my action. So here it goes back into Adi Yajna, because from Adi Yajna only everybody else performs. So this is something that I'm very confused, or I'm not confused. I consider Śrī Kṛṣṇa to be the Adi Yajna, and this part of it to be where he is an individual and moving into society and coming back. So here he manifests as Śrī Kṛṣṇa, the Mahabharata player, and the other he is Śrī Kṛṣṇa, the conceptual yogi. There's a last sentence here: mixing of people would result in their destruction. Now, mixing of people is, what is mixing of people? There is the physical element of people of different jatis, varnas, mixing and marrying and things like that. There is the mixing of people as communities. Like you have Abrahamics, you have Christians, Muslims, and the Indian subcontinent, the faiths of the Indian subcontinents. So what is this mixing of people that Śrī Kṛṣṇa is referring to? If Śrī Kṛṣṇa is referring to, in my view, Śrī Kṛṣṇa is referring to the mixing of Dharma. So we go back to what is Dharma. Dharma is fundamentally conditioning. It is conditioning at an individual level. It is where it is called Swadharma. It is conditioning at a societal level, where society then begins to get its own identity. Like a housing society would have an identity, a company would have an identity. To give an example, let us say Lata Madam is working somewhere. Lata Madam has an identity. When she works in an organization, her identity gets subsumed into that of the identity of the organization. And the organization gets its own identity. Now, if you were to bring a person who does not gel with the philosophy of the organization, there is going to be a problem. There is going to be chaos or adharma. So, dharma is not merely one of conditioning. It is also of order. It's also harmony. It is also matching of various aspects of living, from gross to subtle, and right down to causal. Causal means that which motivates. Then the manifestation in a subtle way, and the manifestation in the physically evident manner. So these are the three, in my view, when Śrī Kṛṣṇa says that mixing of people would result in their destruction, it means to me that when you make people who are not naturally aligned to each other get together, you are generally going to head for a very turbulent phase in society. or within yourself. Like for instance, in a family, if people with different points of view are constantly being thrown with each other on a subject which is contentious by itself, you will generally have a problem with, you will all generally end up creating chaos in that ecosphere. So this is the three verses that I am talking about right now. Again, I am going to go back to verse 22. There is no mandatory action in three words, not anything unattained or to be attained by me, yet I am continuously acting. So here there are two problems. One, as I have said, is who is Śrī Kṛṣṇa. As far as I am concerned, Śrī Kṛṣṇa is a yogi who is participating in Mahabharata. So when he is talking to Arjuna, he is talking to Arjuna with both aspects in view. A lot of this Arjuna does not understand because Arjuna is constantly looking at Śrī Kṛṣṇa as a charioteer, friend, and other things. So he is only looking at him with the view of somebody who is capable, who is a friend, who is physically available. He is not going beyond that when he represents Śrī Kṛṣṇa. But for me, Śrī Kṛṣṇa is a yogi who, by incidents, participates in Kurukshetra. But as a yogi, also, in my view, my assessment of him as a yogi is inadequate, because later on, when we read the mad-Bhagavadgi, you will realize that he is also Adi Yajna, that is the cause of karma. So this is one aspect which I have been grappling with for many months, and I'm going to throw this discussion open. We're going to discuss for another 10 minutes or so, and I want your inputs and as to how you view these three stanzas. Over to you all. Hello. Okay, let's me start with Meena madam. Meena madam, please let me have your views.
Sir, I'm little, no, I'm not able to exactly put those into words. But though certain things are beyond expressing by words. But what I feel is, as Krishna says, the one thing, essence of what you're trying to do is action goes on, irrespective of whether you like or you don't like. Just do the action as it is. Don't have the ownership of what you're going to do.
But here, madam, there is a problem. He is not talking about action in third person. He's talking about action in first person. He's saying, I am the one who's continuously acting. He is saying that there's nothing that is unattained by me. So here, he is not talking about action being permanent. He is talking about himself being the action, or he is, and an attainment, that is, he has achieved. Then how do we interpret that?
That is what I was about. How do we then take that? Because he is the universe. If he is able to say that he performs his action unattained, how do we do it in a day-to-day activity with that bhava?
No. Here the problem is not about how do we separate our action from our personality. That is not what we are talking about. Here we are trying to understand Sri Krishna's words as in a manner that makes sense to us. It does not have to be correct or wrong. It has to make sense. Because at the end of the day, when if Sri Krishna is saying something here, and we go with the premise that Sri Krishna knows what he is talking about. See, it's very simple. Communication, first, we have to accept that the person is coming from a position of wisdom, or he knows what he's talking about. If we accept that, then we take his words seriously. If we accept that and we take his words seriously, then it's a question of how do we interpret it, because Sri Krishna is not here to interpret it for us. Correct? So here we are talking about critical thinking. we are talking about critically evaluating Sri Krishna as a person, as a yogi, and as a concept. And when we look at his words, here obviously there is a personality involved in it. There's nothing that I have not attained, yet I am continuously acting. How do we interpret this?
Sir, can I try?
Yeah, please, please.
Yeah.
But
See,
who is this?
I'm
First, please
Kala here.
continue.
Namaste to
Yes.
I'm Kala here. See, I have followed a few lectures of Bhagavad Gita, and at this point in time, I would like to bring this. Vidura, I believe, was there were two people who had observed this as a third party. One is Sanjaya
Mm.
and Dhritarashtra, who is getting the commentary. So these two people were the third party, whereas the other team, Kaurava, Pandava, Krishna, are all in the battlefield. Apparently, when Sanjaya was observing the battlefield very closely, he suddenly finds that Krishna in the form of Arjuna fighting, then Krishna in the form of Kauravas getting beaten. So it was all Bhima as Krishna, then Bhishma as Krishna. Apparently, it was Krishna who was actually waging the war. He was part of everything, a person who was eliminating Dharma. Probably that is why I am doing everything. I am conducting everything, but the popular belief is that Arjuna was the one who was a warrior who was fighting out the battle, but I was the one, the instrumental part, to do all that. Maybe we can relate to this concept with Sanjaya watching all this.
See, there I completely agree with you, because this is where Sri Krishna becomes Adi Yajna, the source of all action.
Correct. Yeah.
Correct. Now, but here we must reconcile. If Sri Krishna says that he is the source of all action, then he is not the end of all action. No, at the end of the day, there is something that is started. There is a doer, and there is an achievement. Here, Sri Krishna says, "I am not only the starter, I am also the action. I am also the end." Am I getting through?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that,
The first two
you know,
parts. I am the source of this. I am performing the action. Now we have to analyze the end reaction. How are we going to interpret the
how can you say I have achieved? There's nothing that I have not achieved.
maybe the end part we have to relate to karma. What you sow, so shall you reap. So the punishment or the good thing is given by Krishna himself for the action.
But then throughout Bhagavad Gita, he says, "I am not going to take your karma." See there, he is also separating himself from the outcome.
No, he is making the bad one feel. He has punished the bad people. End of the day, he has eliminated Adharma.
What is bad? What is bad? How do you define bad?
The one who is the adharmi is is taught that this is adharma, at least
What is dharma?
the prescribed values which have to be followed is
Who
that
prescribes this value?
that is our astha, no? So the which has been followed from so many years, which is right and wrong, what we have perceived, that is the way of life.
No, madam. The point is, where does that way of life come from? The root of that word of way of life. See, the issue is not about what I am not disputing what you're saying. I'm not for a minute disagreeing with you. I am trying to get a critical thinking into this particular point that you are making about good and bad. Because throughout Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says you have to look at, you cannot talk about, you have to be neutral. You have to treat good and bad as equal. You have to treat right and wrong as equal. There is no such thing. Papa and Punya does not exist. Then what is Dharma? Okay, let's go to Ram Mohan sir. Ramon sir. Ramon sir. Sir, I think you muted your phone.
Yes. Sorry. In these three stanzas, actually a continuation of the previous three stanzas, in which he has asked that everyone should perform mandatory activities without attachment. And also he has said that only when perfection is reached, then only you can do anything properly.
Correct.
And you have to create your own level, in which you will be judged. You have to do it in the best manner possible. So he's trying to inspire thing by saying that I myself am doing all the work, even though I have attained. There's nothing that I don't have that I have not attained. Even I am working all the time. If I stop working, then others will think that. I think here in this case, he's more like a god. He's more superhuman. He's not talking as another human being. No, he's much above supreme being. He says even if he doesn't work or he's not doing continuously some action, people will follow him. That's why he's trying to inspire that whatever it is, you have to do your duty without any attachment all the time. Whatever is given to you, you should continue to do it. That's one way of inspiring and saying that if I myself am doing it, why can't you do it?
So there is a flaw in the argument, sir. I'm sorry to be
Sure.
nitpicking on these things. The problem here is I'm unable to see the connection. He is saying that you must do your mandatory activities without attachment. In 19,
Yeah.
and in 21, he's talking about performing every activity splendidly.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But there is no connection between that and the next one, where he says that there is no mandatory activity that I have not reached. So these are not related.
No.
Because he is in one, he is qualifying what karma is. There he is qualifying karma. In here, he is talking about himself being the doer.
Yes. Even though there is no mandatory action for me, I am doing it.
Exactly. So the question is, how does that I'm having a difficulty in relating 19 to 21 with 22.
He says, even though there is no mandatory action for me, still I am doing some work. You have some mandatory action, you must do it. I am doing even if I am not necessary for me to work, but you are not doing even though it is mandatory for you.
So here again we have a problem. See, the issue is mandatory action is nitya karma, naimitika karma.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now the thing here is karma, when it is done according to dharma, is dharmic.
Yes.
When it is done in opposition to dharma, it is adharmic.
Yes.
Now the question is, what is dharma? Dharma is anything that retains the essence of a entity.
Yes.
So, like for instance, a heart is meant to pump blood. For as long as it is only pumping blood, it is dharmic.
Yes.
When it is pushed when it is applied into a situation of stress, it becomes adharmic because it gets high blood pressure and the various other elements creep in. Now, the point I'm making is that here, when he is talking, when you say he is motivating,
yes,
Śrī Kṛṣṇa does not have to motivate, because throughout mad-Bhagavadgi, he does not motivate. He states, this is it, it's all qualification. He's qualifying everything. I am telling you, this is it. And second thing is, he never tries to motivate Arjuna. He says, boss, you want to do it, you do it. You don't want to do it, don't do it. But remember this, if you do this, this will be your outcome. If you fight, if you die, they will call you a hero. If you don't fight and you die, they will call you a coward. If you don't fight and you run away, they'll call you a coward. So the thing is that he is closing down all options for Arjuna and saying that the only option you have is to fight. If you die, you die. Like Kala Madam said, it is possible that the the whole situation is one where Adi Yajna is Śrī Kṛṣṇa. So here I am having a problem. I'm still not reconciled. Lata madam, would you like to add something?
No, sir, not today.
Okay. Lata madam, normally nowadays you are keeping very quiet.
It's better to listen, sir. I'm new to this whole topic, so for me, it's better to safe to listen.
Okay, okay. Lalita madam, what about you? Lalita madam is not there.
Yeah. Not much to add because I feel I need to learn much more. But one thing I did remember when the discussion was going on was when the karma is being talked about, it's also like let us keep aside Krishna from the picture. Let us think it is like Krishna is like the sun, Surya. So the Surya is there just by his presence. He is allowing the whole world to be active and to do its own karma. He is not affected by anybody's karma. He is not involved in anything, but he is there. It is all because of him only everything is happening. So it is something like that. It's quite subtle, this karma thing, and that's why at times I feel, honestly, I feel it is best to think everything what we need to do. Sarvaramba parityagi. Before we do anything, we offer. Then in 12th chapter, I'm referring to. Then he says, quoting his words only, it's all for his sake. Artha.
So you say
For
Sarvam
his.
Krishna. Sarvam, everything you say is that
It is
Sarvam
all for
Krishna,
him.
Krishna Arpanam Astu. That's it.
Yes, finally Krishna Arpanam Astu. So everything is
But that's
getting done,
yeah,
being done. So I would rather go by that because I find it too much of a, what should we say? I wonder where to start thinking and where to stop thinking. It becomes difficult.
No, see, the problem, madam, is that by doing this continuously, the problem that we incur is that we stop the ability of critical thinking.
No.
Because
That we must not stop. That's why one of the, I think I told you this long back also, one of the things which pulls me to these sessions is the way you prod us, the way you question us, how, who, why, what, all those little things. It suddenly makes us, you are quite a good what should we say, prodder, or make us think deeper. So I think that is taken care of. But I was more thinking about the application of it, application of all these concepts. When it comes to that, I find it most easy to think it in those terms. सर्वारंभ परित्यागी और सब आपके लिए ही आप एंड देन सर कृष्ण अर्पणमस्तु इसमें हो गया.
But madam, that is fine. When you cannot find a solution, you go and do that. But when you give up and say no, I'm from beginning itself I'm going to do this because it doesn't seem to make sense. Then we have
No. It doesn't mean I don't do my swadharma. It doesn't mean I don't do my whatever kartavya, whatever needs to be done, it has to be done. It's not that it's a blind submissive, blind submission. No, nowhere. Anything that I do, I try to see that I extract the maximum out of that moment, or out of that action, or whatever we may call it.
Now let's go to next two verses. Okay, in that will create even more confusion when you try to mix it with the previous three verses. Here he says in verse 25, the ignorant act with attachment to action. The wise act with an attitude of no attachment for the welfare of the world. No disturbance of the intellect should arise from actions of the ignorant who are attached to actions. The wise perform all actions with an attitude of balance. Look at the confusion here. Earlier he is saying, I have completed all action. Here he's talking about attachment to action. Then he talks about the attachment of the attitude of no attachment to action and do it for the welfare of the world. Okay. Now, what is the welfare of the world? Welfare of the world, again we come back to Dharma. Okay, so we have to define Dharma again. Then he says that the disturbance of the intellect should arise from actions of the ignorant who are attached to actions. So, no disturbance. That means if somebody is telling you something that is upsetting you, you should not get upset. To my mind, the whole premise of karma is that karma acts will happen. That is, whether you like it or not, karma is everywhere. That is, action is happening everywhere. So it is like a river that is flowing. For as long as you just look at the river flowing, nothing is happening. You are not relating to the river flowing. If you put your hand in the flow of the river, there is impedance. You are providing a resistance to the flow of the river. So there is impedance. And the river will try to push you. If you keep your hand like this, the river will continue to flow because you have reduced the impedance and the resistance to the flow. Now the question is, you are looking at the river. For as long as you are looking at the river, you were separate from the river. For as long as when you put your hand inside the river, you created a impedance or the resistance to the flow. What this tells me is that karma is like that river. For as long as you don't engage yourself into that action, the flow will continue. But when you are acting, which is what he is talking about, with an attitude, if you perform the wise perform all actions with an attitude of balance. That means you keep your hand, you're in the river, but you keep your hand in a manner which does not stop the flow of the water. This to me means the only thing that does this is the personality, the I. So when the ahankara, I am the doer, goes and puts his hand inside the river which is happening, what happens is that there is resistance, and then the person feels the resistance into himself. He becomes an experiencer of the resistance. But when the person is trying to go with the flow of the river, there is minimized resistance. So the person has got a balance. But what is the meaning of the balance? It means that the understanding of the person as a doer, the experiencer, is reduced. That means the Purusha is reduced. The Asmita is reduced. The sense of self-worth is continuously contained within itself. The Ahankara, I am the doer, is minimized. The better than that is stepping back and watching the karma flow. But then when the karma is going on, it is not, since karma is everywhere, it is not possible for the individual to escape the flow. So that means another thing. You cannot separate yourself from the river of karma. You are in it. All you can do is to try and reduce your resistance to the flow and try to align yourself with the flow. Now the question then will come, should you go with the flow? Can you stay in the flow and yet not be a resistance? Now this is a question I'm going to throw back at you all. So I'm going to ask each of you all to give me your views. Let me start with Lata madam. This is a very commonsensical question, Lata madam. You cannot say I'm a new person here.
Sir, I'll
Hello?
be last.
Okay, who shall we start with? Kala madam.
So the verse you start, the second verse we had gone through today was that how adharmis are in the sense of ignorance. I mean, and the wrong decisions they take, or the decisions they take, are only based on greed and probably selfish motive. Now, I think sometimes in the school, the concepts what we want to convey, we convey using some example or illustration. Okay, so now let us take a person who is righteous and who is waging a war for the protection of something good in the society. Let us keep Arjuna as example doing that. So now, what probably the message what Arjuna has got is, come on Arjuna, you do the action without expecting any fruit of action. Come on, you do it. And if you have all the parameters correct, and you're following all the rules of the textbook, whatever, you will be successful. Okay, and you don't think that you have done it. Okay, you are successful. Okay, we put a full stop there. Now let us see the other scenario. We take this fellow Dasharatha as example. Dasharatha, that fellow who was blinded with mere with a selfish attitude of crowning his son the prince, whether it was right or wrong, he had only that blind love towards his son. And that kind of attitude has brought doomsday or a destructive result, because the whole entire motive was very selfish. So we have to, I think this chapter we have to relate to first chapter and think about the context of war. Based on that, we have to connect, is what I feel. We cannot take that sloka per se and say, okay, what does it mean? I think we'll have to connect everything, connect the dots. Okay, I
Fair enough.
close.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm going to ask you. Can I ask you a question?
Yes, I'll try.
Okay. So you had said that Duryodhana was wrong. He was selfish. You had said that Dasharatha was wrong and selfish. You said Arjuna was fighting a righteous war. I'm going to ask a question.
Dhritarashtra.
Dhritarashtra, sorry. So I'm going to ask a simple question. Kshatriya Dharma says that the king must fight for his land. So when you look at Duryodhana, Duryodhana was fighting for his land. Now, the fact remains that by fighting Duryodhana, the Pandavas were not fighting a dharmic war, because they were fighting Kshatriya Dharma. Because if you look at that logic which Arjuna gives in chapter 2, in the chapter 1, he says, boss, why should I fight? These are all great people. They are people whom I love. Why should I fight? I don't care. I don't really want all this money and all this fame. It's going to take me nowhere. So if that is a fantastic way of thinking. So what he's saying is that I am willing to abrogate my Kshatriya Dharma and fight for my land. A land which does not even belong to him. right now, if you really look at Mahabharata, the Yuddha, that land belonged to nobody. All of them in the end are dead. They are fighting for something that does not belong to them. But Kshatriya Dharma says you have to fight for that land. Now the question that I have to ask is, how do you define righteousness?
Sir, as you said, they are all following the Kshatriya Dharma of fighting. Now, the other aspect is, are they fighting for a proper cause? For example,
Exactly.
are they? What are they fighting for? Are they for using Kshatriya Dharma to satisfy their selfish motives? Then Krishna is not with them. As simple as that. Now, if you
No,
are
no, no.
fighting,
Madam, sorry to interrupt you.
yeah.
Here there is a problem. Kshatriya Dharma is you have to fight for the land. Now the intent is whether you look at it this way or that way, it is for selfish intent only. It is the ahankara. You become a king because you got the ahankara. The thing is that even after the Pandavas became kings, they still ruled with the selfish intent. I want to be king. The fundamental logic does not change. No. Even if you are going to be a very righteous king, what they call Rama was, because I have no evidence that Rama was a righteous king. As of now, there is no evidence, because there is no evidence of Rama's rules on which he ruled. But let's take, for instance, let us take that as an example, that Ram Rajya was the epitome of righteousness. Did the Kshatriyas, did the Pandavas rule after they won the way? We don't know. Not really. Was the Duryodhana worse? Not really. Then what is this righteousness? I'm sorry, I'm still beating a very one word called righteousness.
I can give one example. I don't know whether it is right or wrong, but I'm trying. I'm just
This is Kala Madam only.
Kala only. I'm continuing, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, for example, there are two people. Okay, one we'll assume it's Modi. Okay, and the other one we assume it's Lalu Prasad Yadav. Okay. Now we want Modi to come. That is what all the reports are telling. Ab ki bar 400 par, and heart of heart we are very excited to know he will cross 400. All that, okay. Thinking thinking that things will not be as bad as some Rahul Gandhi or Lalu Prasad Yadav being our prime minister. It's as simple as that. So Pandavas coming to there, we have some ray of hope because they have not done anything wrong. Whereas Dhritarashtra has done so many things because of his ignorance, foolishness, over pampering. He was arrogant, selfish, and he wanted the best. And he always had blackmailed his parents, threatened them. So all these, if a like Rahul Gandhi, fighting with Sonia, for all that to be powerful, to get that to become emperor without going to passing various steps. I want to be ruler just for the sake of it. See, that is totally different from a personal kind of
So
grasp.
what you're saying is that Duryodhana was tamasic, whereas the Pandavas were sattvic.
Exactly, and things will
Now
not go
the
wrong.
question, the question is that, madam, while I would agree to you to some extent, agree with you to some extent, I am having difficulty in reconciling whether, because see, at the end of the day, remember one thing: throughout the war, Duryodhana fought in a very straightforward manner. The Pandavas, they used every stratagem in the book. For example, killing of Bhishma, killing of Dronacharya, killing of everybody, Karna, everybody.
Yes, sir, you're right.
So we have a problem here.
Okay, I have my point of view there. I'll tell you one thing. When we see, when we compare Kauravas, their strength, their abilities, their infrastructure, their administrative power, to these fellows, five of them, that
Are you giving excuses or are you talking righteousness?
both. So
No,
sometimes
don't give excuses. Talk only righteousness.
I'm telling you, sometimes to achieve
Hmm.
something great, we need to get support from so many so many fronts. For example, if a student, for example, is preparing for his exam, now
Hmm.
he will have, if he is going to get only the support from the classroom to be successful, it is he cannot be successful. He needs support from various sources. It could be some YouTube support, or some extra classes support, or some shortcuts, some tricks to win the war. End of the day, he has to be successful. Like that, there is you have to get support, and if you are on the right path, you will get support, hook or by crook.
Madam, there is a fundamental dichotomy in your argument, madam. The problem is very straightforward. When you are saying that it is a Dharma Yuddha means the Kshatriya Dharma was being used in the Dharma Yuddha throughout, other than probably the killing of Ashwatthama. The Kauravas never strayed from the rules of battle. Never. The Pandavas never stuck to the rules of battle. But you cannot tell me that in order to do this, that is justified. That doesn't make sense.
I don't know, sir. Because I thought my only thing. See, there are when
To
we,
me, it doesn't make sense. Does it make sense to you? Are you able to justify it? If
because I'll tell
somebody
you
says,
what the
if it
chapter.
were to happen to you, would you care? Would you think that is the right way to? Suppose somebody was to say, somebody was to have a fight with you on a let us say, okay, Kala madam has left, so when she comes back, we can talk about it. Ramon sir, yes sir.
I think dharma is interpreted differently in different times. I think it's dynamic. There's no one single definition. Rama time, dharma is different from Krishna's period. Krishna's that yuga.
Fair enough.
And here you have
What is the difference?
no.
No, sir. You can't immediately go ahead. Go ahead. You have to then pinpoint the difference, because at the end of the day, dharma is the fundamental problem we are grappling with. The entire Srimad Bhagavad Gita is about dharma. What is this dharma we are grappling with?
Now we are to the immediately about the answer to what you are talking. The ends justify the means.
Huh. So there is no. So the thing is that is what at the end of the day, the
The ends.
role model of Kali Yuga is Śrī Kṛṣṇa.
Okay.
But at the end of even then, the question really is, when we talk about this whole game of righteousness and duality, good, bad, right, wrong, throughout Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says there is no such thing. You cannot look at it that way. So the question, again, actually we've sidetracked ourselves from that particular verse where we are talking about, where am I? He's talking about the ignorant act with attachment to action. Both Duryodhana and Arjuna acted with attachment to action. The wise act with an attitude of no attachment. Only Sri Krishna is acting with an attitude of no attachment. And he, for the welfare of the world. Now, what is this welfare of the world?
He's telling Arjuna to be like that. Arjuna, he says,
Correct.
you forget your attachment, you leave it aside, and then start fighting.
So he is saying, become a role model of like me.
Yes.
Fair enough. So no disturbance of the intellect should arise from the actions of the ignorant who are attached to actions. Wise perform all actions with an attitude of balance. Now, this I think should be very easy for Lata madam to interpret. Because it's a very simple requirement.
Sir, everyone has not had a chance, sir.
No, you are not running away. You've been ducking throughout the class today.
No, I think it's a too complex a topic. Really, it needs a lot of thought.
So that's why you're in class. So give out your view.
No, I agree with you that the Pandavas don't seem to have. I mean, they've done everything other than following the path of war. I mean, the righteous way of fighting the war. And yet, Śrī Kṛṣṇa was with them. So I don't know what to say. That's why I'd rather be a listener.
Okay. Who have we left out? Meena madam. Sorry. What is your view?
Sir, I don't have absolutely any view at all. It's more confusing. I'm still confused. I was just wondering whether I read Mahabharata the wrong way. I don't know who's right, who's wrong. But we all been taught that Kauravas are bad and Pandavas are good. Now the way you are telling us, I'm totally taken aback. I'm still confused the more.
Are you do you okay? Let us start from the first principle. Do you disagree with me?
No, the point is when Pandavas came back, the Kauravas should have given the share of the land, but they refused. And number two, the dice playing game, Duryodhana cleverly made Shakuni play the dice. Again, the third point is when Draupadi was robed, she was humiliated among, which was again crime against. So these were the points which when Kauravas were they righteous? No, they weren't.
Okay. No. 1 minute. Stop. Very good points. Let's take these 3 points. What was the first one? The first one was?
When the Pandavas came back, the share of the land wasn't given by Duryodhana.
Okay. Now, the question is, when the Kshatriya Dharma says that the king must fight for his property, for his land. That is why the kings used to continuously fight with each other to expand their territory and to expand their to prove their capability of ruling land. Okay. So the first rule is that there was nothing in Kshatriya Dharma that said that Duryodhana had to part with land to Arjuna. There was no such thing. Number 1. Number 2, you talk about Shakuni. Duryodhana told Shakuni, said, boss, I'll finger this game, you don't worry about it. Śrī Kṛṣṇa understood this. He went and told Yudhishthira, boss, I'll play for you, you don't play. What happened? Yudhishthira had ahankar. No, I'll play. He played. Who stopped him from, why did he go and start waging everybody? In the end, he gave his brothers also as a bet. His wife as a bet. Who was the problem here? Was it Duryodhana, Shakuni, or Yudhishthira? Where does the problem lie? Once you have given somebody and you have lost, you have no right to say that is right or wrong. So when the Draupadi gets disrobed, these people have no right there. So what are we talking about?
It's the pull of the vices. It's the pull of the. It's the way the juva. What do you call that? Dice
that I agree. Yeah,
game
dice,
and all. And so main thing is that Yudhishthira, just because he was fond of the game and he succumbed to his yes,
Vasana.
his vasana. Yes. So that was that was the cause, actual cause. Even if Shakuni and Duryodhana told him, he could have, even if Krishna did not say, he could have said, I don't want to play. That was also an option.
At that time, Yudhishthira did not know that the dice was loaded. We have to give
immaterial.
Yudhishthira the benefit of the doubt.
No, but immaterial. I would say if Pandavas were such straightforward people, he should have said, no, I refrain. I do not indulge myself in playing all these vices.
No,
I do not want to get into the
no,
vice.
But
Simple.
madam, there is a problem here, because one of the biggest, one of the part of the dharma of Kshatriyas is to be able to take a risk, and valor is done by hunting. Risk is done by by taking risk on some things like this. But that is stratagem, where you bet on something, you take a risk and you go and do something. Without that, a king or a businessman will not be able to do work, because he is not trained to take those risks. And like, for instance, if somebody asked me to go and start a business tomorrow, I won't be able to do it, because I don't have the capability of taking the risk. Whereas Mukesh Ambani will do it in a jiffy. So the issue is not that.
Maybe.
That is dharma.
No, but here we are not talking about that. We are talking about the righteousness. Sir, you asked about righteousness. Say the righteousness.
Where is it said that gambling is unrighteous? Because here, even in mad-Bhagavadgi, Śrī Kṛṣṇa says, I am the betting capability in gambling. That is what he is saying. So
okay, but then at least, okay, he played, but Yudhishthira had no business or no right to put his brothers of wife and all Rajya. Okay, he could have put his kingdom. That was, if he had, that was different. But when he didn't have, he should have just stopped. He should have walked off. That disgrace would have been. That disgrace would have been better than this Kurukshetra war.
Correct.
Killing
so the
many
issue
people.
Now is, what are we talking about?
Righteousness. Righteousness. I thought we were talking about righteousness.
No, the point
righteousness
is
ends. The righteousness ends the minute Yudhishthira put his brothers and wife on the betting.
Agreed.
The righteousness ended there. So Lalita, I'm not,
Lalita madam, I'm not even having a problem with what you have said. The issue is, we have to take an example and extrapolate it to the concept. Just staying with the example does not help us when we come to the core of the concept. Because here we're still struggling with the meaning of righteousness. You understand? We are still struggling with that meaning of righteousness, which is what Meena madam I think said. Okay, Lata madam, you were saying something.
And also Ram sir said about the definitions changing from yuga to yoga. There is one more addition we can add. It differs from person to person. For me, gambling is a vice. Full stop. Anybody who indulges in that is, I don't know. My respect for that person.
But Lalita madam, that is personal. Okay, we are not getting into that part now. See, the minute we become personal about these things, we cannot step back and view concepts in the way they must be viewed. Today, the problem is we personalize everything. When we personalize these things, then what happens is that we do not get that ability to separate ourselves from the event. What are we practicing to do? We are trying to break it down into granules, so that when we look at activity which is happening, we are able to separate ourselves from the action. So basically, we are practicing chapter 3 right now. We are practicing chapter 3. We are not discussing chapter 3. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. That is the intent. The intent is that you should be able to separate yourself from the action itself. Minute you make it personal, when you make it personal and not separate yourself, then you have gone into the Maya. You are not separated from Maya.
It becomes correct. I agree.
Okay, that is the intent. That's why I'm keeping on asking you all these questions. Lalita madam, last question and then we fold up.
So no questions, sir. I just wanted to say that maybe we should also look at Mahabharata from a neutral standpoint. Just observe and learn what not to do and what to do and stuff like that. What works for us, we have to take away. So how not to be, we also have to learn from that. Instead of say thinking that the Pandavas are good or the Kauravas are bad, we think that
Remove
Pandavas are good
duality.
only because Krishna is with them. So the minute we put
Agreed.
ourselves in a neutral stance, then
What is the meaning of neutral stance? One second.
you,
Tell me what is neutral.
neutral is we don't engage, like you
Engage
always
with
have
what?
said. Engage with
Engage
the
with what?
storyline. Engage by saying that so and so is good or so and so is bad. We just observe.
You observe. So the question is, when you recognize that karma is everywhere, when karma is everywhere, and that means it's flowing around you, how do you engage without being engaged? You are in your office, you are working. Somebody comes and tells you GST is not 31st March. GST has not been what do you call it submitted. Now, what is the first thing that will happen to you? You will, baap re, kya ho gaya? That's the first thing that will happen. Second thing is you'll pick up the phone and say, "You idiot! Da 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 da. Why didn't you do it?" You are in the river. Karma is happening around you. How do you separate yourself from that karma?
So what has happened has happened. What we can do in the future is what we have to look at. So what water is thrown under the bridge, what you cannot do anything about, you you have to move on. Mitigate your losses is the way to go look at it. And how to put, I mean, the example you gave, I'm just saying,
But
put in the systems and processes and ensure it doesn't happen again. And what has
but tell
already
me one thing: when
happened,
that action,
gone.
when it happens, what is your first reaction?
No, I would think the way you described maybe a few years back, but now now that we are
Wisdom
older,
has come in you.
yeah,
Okay.
wisdom has stepped in, and we know that there's no point crying over spilt milk.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. Last thoughts. Anybody has any last thoughts? 2 minutes and then we close down. Because next week I want you all to focus on just this. What is dharma? We need to figure out this particular thing called dharma. Because without understanding dharma, we can't understand. The whole game is lost. We are just wasting our time.
So if I could give one liner, I would say time is everything, sir.
Fair enough.
So
Fair enough.
so at that point in time, what one person why he did, the culprit would be, or something would be time. That's why they said
Or
time is
prarabdha
God.
karma. Prarabdha karma.
Yes, time is everything there. And
But prarabdha karma is not time.
but even then, that's what, no, as in when we go delve into Bhagavad Gita, we will come to know what to do, what not to do, how to respond, how not to react, how not to jump, how to give us silence. It will come, we will all learn.
Very nice. Next, anybody else? Okay, I'm going to shut down. I thank you all for coming at such a late notice. I know that 3:30 was, I shifted by half an hour. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much for making this such an exciting class. I'm not sure still about the many questions I asked. I don't have the answers myself, but I think we are getting there. We are practicing Bhagavad Gita. We are trying to understand how Bhagavad Gita can be um, imbibed, made part of our lives. And thank you very much for participating.